You will never understand why you are here unless you know the one who placed you here. There is a clarity that comes only when you acknowledge the source of your existence, when you recognize the author of your story and the origin of the breath that sustains you. To grasp the purpose behind your presence in this world, trace your beginnings. Understand who called you into being, whose will fashioned your days, and whose wisdom unfolded the path beneath your feet. Without that knowledge, your reasons will remain shadowed, your calling will be a vague echo, and the map of your life will be unreadable. Consider how a traveler with a blank map wanders without confidence, while the traveler who knows the cartographer can read hints and landmarks differently. So too, knowing the one who made you allows you to interpret the world's signs with insight rather than confusion. You will never fully appreciate why you were given a blessing until you understand what it means to be a blessing. A blessing is not merely a gift to be counted and hoarded, it is a trust, a responsibility, and a signpost pointing toward a wider good. When you know what it means to bless, you realize that gifts are entrusted for a purpose beyond the immediate pleasure they bring. They are seeds planted in soil meant to yield fruit for others and for the greater plan. To be blessed is to be tasked, to be equipped, and to be invited to participate in something larger than yourself. When blessings are used only to inflate the self, they wither, but when they are shared with humility and intentionality, they flourish. One can learn to steward wealth, talent, and opportunity so that they become conduits of healing, education, hospitality, and justice, rather than mere comforts that isolate. You will never make sense of your suffering if you do not embrace the virtue of patience. Pain often arrives without warning, and it can bend the soul until it feels fragile and unreal. But patience is the lens through which suffering becomes intelligible. It lets time work its quiet alchemy, softening hard lessons and revealing meaning where first there was only injury. Patient endurance does not imply passive resignation. It is an active trust, a disciplined waiting that refuses despair while remaining open to transformation. In the patience that steadies the heart, wounds are not erased, but they are refashioned. They teach, they purify, and they prepare. Patience is not merely a delay of action, but a reorientation, a recalibration of the will that chooses what is lasting over what is immediate. It teaches the art of sustained faith, the cultivation of hope that endures seasons of drought and bears fruit in the time appointed. You will never make true sense of life if you reject the reality of an afterlife. Belief in a life beyond this one gives the sufferings, joys, and choices of the present a horizon that transcends temporary measure. When existence is viewed as a chapter in a grander narrative, the indignities and injustices of this world do not exhaust meaning. Rather, they become episodes that contribute to eternal outcomes. The conviction that there is more to come grants perspective. It diminishes the tyranny of the moment and restores balance between immediate trials and ultimate justice. Without this horizon, the small slights and the great tragedies have the same finality. With it, each act is invested with consequence, and each pain becomes a test that announces a larger mercy. This belief reshapes priorities. The pursuit of transient acclaim yields to the pursuit of character that will last beyond one lifetime. You will never know who you are if you do not know who you want to become. Identity is not only found in memory or circumstance, it is forged in aspiration. To be human is to be moving, to be shaped by the images we hold of our future selves. If you lack a vision of your becoming, you drift at the mercy of winds and imitators. You mirror others and accept stray values by default. But when you name the person you long to be, compassionate, steadfast, truthful, humble, you begin to act in ways that align your present with that future. Self-knowledge blooms when it is tied to destiny. Who you are is inseparable from who you are becoming. This is why mentorship, deliberate discipline, and prayerful imagination matter. They provide the scaffolding for transformation, helping you to practice small acts that accumulate into a life of integrity. You will never know where you are going if you do not know where you came from. The story of origin reveals contours of identity and direction. When you know your roots, you understand the gifts and limitations you carry. You inherit a map of tendencies, strengths, and wounds, and you can set a course that respects them. History explains habit, ancestry explains longing. Without ancestry, every step forward risks repeating mistakes. Without origin, meaning becomes untethered. Knowing your past also grants gratitude. It reminds you that you are shaped by generations of care, by teachers and caregivers whose names may be forgotten, but whose impact echoes in your bones. Acknowledging origin fosters humility and steadies ambition, because it situates your future within a lineage rather than an isolated achievement. We inhabit a world dense with trials, designed to rouse us from complacency. Suffering is not merely collateral damage in a chaotic universe. For those with eyes to see, it can be a teacher, a herald, a clarion call to wake the dormant soul. Difficulties strip away illusions and expose the heart's dependencies, challenging us to realign with principles that endure. Many of life's hardest moments act like a kiln, subjecting us to fire that strengthens rather than annihilates. The rawness of loss, the ache of longing, and the sting of injustice can become instruments that refine character and produce depth that comfortable living never achieves. Suffering can evacuate shallow certainties and compel a deeper reliance on what is true and steadfast. It forces the interior work necessary for growth, the painful pruning that allows new shoots of compassion and wisdom to emerge. But if we persistently brood over what seems to have abandoned us, we risk missing what might be offered in return. To fixate on absence, on the opportunities we think were taken, on the doors that closed when we wanted them open, is to narrow vision and harden the heart. Grief deserves its space, and righteous complaint has its place. But if complaint becomes the default language of the soul, gratitude cannot get a footing. Dwelling on what missed us becomes an invitation to bitterness. It blinds us to present mercies and to unseen possibilities waiting to unfold. A life consumed by what was not given forfeits the joy and creativity required to repurpose pain into constructive action. It substitutes an imagined past for a real, actionable present. There is, beyond the ache of loss, the potential for a deeper and more expansive purpose. When we widen our perspective, life's fragments begin to fit together. We find that what was once a cross to bear can be a bridge to carry another. What was a wound can be a wellspring of empathy for those who suffer similarly. The reframing of pain into service and the transmutation of absence into a call to generosity transforms loneliness into companionship with purpose. This world's supposed derailments can be the very tracks that lead us toward destiny when we allow our grief to be integrated rather than idolized. Integration involves honesty about hurt, but also courage to redirect energy outward toward building, teaching, comforting, and advocating. It is the difference between being a container of sorrow and becoming a channel of solace. A life anchored in a transcendent purpose yields fewer questions and more answers. Certainty does not mean we possess full knowledge of every mystery. Rather, it means we stand on a foundation that makes sense of the big things: justice, love, suffering, and death. When a divine framework orders existence, everyday confusions lose their sovereignty. We are no longer at the mercy of every random thought or fear. We can hold trust and conviction even as some particulars remain unresolved. This is not the arrogance of blind certainty, but the serenity of a soul that trusts the Creator's ordering hand. Anchoring yourself to this framework gives courage to face paradoxes, to be joyful in sorrow, hopeful in waiting, and patient in the midst of uncertainty. Living in harmony with divine decree does not require passivity, it demands alignment. To harmonize means to tune the ear of the heart to the rhythms of what is good, true, and beautiful. It asks of us moral discipline and spiritual receptivity, to answer the small calls of conscience, to obey what we know of truth, and to remain open to correction. Harmony with the divine is a continuing practice. It involves prayer, reflection, ethical action, and the willingness to renounce lesser loves for greater ones. Through this attunement, our actions become coherent with a story larger than ourselves. Harmony also cultivates resilience. When our inner life is disciplined and ordered by higher ends, external turmoil is less likely to throw us into chaos. The pursuit of the pleasure of the Lord who created us gives our stories their most luminous meaning. When our aims are calibrated toward that which pleases the divine, our motivations shift from self-glorification to stewardship. We begin to measure success differently. We prize faithfulness over fame, sacrifice over comfort, and love over short-lived accolades. This pursuit is not merely about personal reward. It is about participating in God's redemptive work, about being agents of mercy and truth in a world that needs them desperately. It is a call to holiness lived out in ordinary choices. How we speak to our neighbors, how we use our resources, how we forgive, and how we create space for those in need. In this pursuit, our lives rhyme with the larger purpose of creation rather than discordantly asserting our own small narratives. Perhaps you have asked, why me? A question born of bewilderment before trials, sorrow, or seeming misfortune. It is a sincere and human question, and it deserves the tenderness of an honest answer. But there is a complementary question that opens a different door. Why not me? This alternative is not callous, it is courageous. It recognizes that whether one is chosen for joy or sorrow, blessing or burden, there is dignity in the calling. If others bear hardship and grow through it, why could that refining not happen through you? If some are instruments of mercy by virtue of their struggle, why exclude you from that possibility? The second question invites a posture of proactive response, a readiness to allow purpose to be worked into your circumstances rather than waiting for circumstances to become painless before you act, asking, why not me? Reframes hardship as potential vocation. It turns a senseless assault into an invitation to participate in the good work of formation. This question refuses the stance of victimhood and invites agency, not the arrogant control of outcomes, but the humble readiness to be used for a purpose that transcends personal comfort. It is a posture of cooperation with the divine craftsperson who shapes hearts through both balm and fire. When you ask this, you begin to look for how your trials might cultivate empathy, how your losses might open avenues of service, and how your limitations might sharpen the focus of your gifts. To accept this posture requires a certain courage. The courage to let go of the fantasy that life owes you ease. The courage to embrace responsibility for how your brokenness might become a conduit for healing. The courage to trust that your narrative can be rewritten, not in spite of pain, but often through it. Courage does not eliminate fear, but it resists the pull of despair and chooses faithful endurance. In choosing this, you consent to be an instrument of grace whether your days are filled with bounty or scant provision. It is the quiet decision to take up small, faithful tasks, tending the neighbor, speaking gently, welcoming the stranger that trains the soul for larger obedience. Ultimately, meaning emerges not from circumstances alone, but from the way you receive them. Two people can stand in the same storm and attend to different lessons. One will count only what was taken, the other will learn what can be given. Meaning is cultivated in the soul when honesty meets acceptance, when grief is allowed but not allowed to ossify into cynicism. It is formed in the daily acts of obedience, in the quiet decisions to love, when love is costly, and in the deliberate practice of patience. It grows as you practice gratitude in small things and as you choose to invest what you have into hope for others. So hold fast to the one who designed your entrance into being, and let that knowledge illuminate the why of your life. Cherish each blessing by understanding it as a means to bless others. Endure suffering with patience, trusting that time and faith will reveal its lessons. Anchor your life in the reality of what lies beyond this world, and let that horizon reshape how you evaluate present trials. Vision cast your becoming, so that identity is movement toward a noble goal, and let the story of where you came from inform where you are going. When you stop asking, "Why me?" purely as complaint, and begin to ask, "Why not me?" as invitation, you enter a posture of readiness, ready to be formed, ready to serve, ready to receive the meaning sown into your days. Embrace daily disciplines that cultivate this posture of readiness. Begin with honest prayer that names fear and hope alike. Commit to deliberate acts of kindness so that compassion becomes practice rather than mere admiration. Seek community that will speak truth into your life and hold you accountable when comfort tempts you to forget higher aims. Read and reflect. Serve without seeking recognition, letting humility be the measure. Learn from elders and mentor the young so wisdom circulates. Keep a journal to mark small mercies and lessons time reveals, and revisit it whenever doubt grows heavy. Offer your gifts in the ordinary contexts of work, family, and neighborhood, allowing small acts of faithfulness to accumulate into character. When you falter, repent and return with gentleness. When you succeed, steward the victory with gratitude. Remember that transformation is often slow and nearly always ordinary. Steady persistence of right choices, tiny acts compounded across years. In that steadiness, the soul is formed, purpose becomes visible, and the question, "Why me?" finds its answer in a life that is deliberate, faithful, and shaped by the divine, ever grateful.